Hey everybody, and welcome back to Thread X3 Productions. I am Nick.
And I am Nate.
So we're kind of getting back into our commentary. We did it before where we had like a theme of the month, and so we do some movies and we do some video games. This month's theme is school. For a lot of people, school is either out or getting out very, very soon. So it's like, okay, let's do school. I think that could be really cool. So today's movie that we're going to be talking about is School of Rock, the classic Jack Black.
Quintessential.
So let's start with you and your thoughts or whatever. What did you think about School of Rock? Try to think about like the first time you watched it versus, okay, I just recently watched it. What's, that kind of thing.
The first time I watched School of Rock, I remember being mesmerized by it. It's definitely one of those movies that I feel like shaped me and like the generation that when it came out. Let me ask you this, and we're gonna definitely like date ourselves here. How old were you when School of Rock came out? It was 2002. Like, what grade were you in?
Oh, 2002. So 88, 12 would make it 2000. So 14. I was 14. So what? That's 7th or 8th grade, right?
I think it's 8th going into 11th because I remember I was like 14.
Hold
15.
on. 8th going into 11th? I'm fucking Sheldon. I'm just skipping a bunch of grades.
Okay. So yeah, in 2002, I remember I was still living in California at that time.
Oh, okay.
I was 6.
Okay.
So it was definitely one of those like that was I wasn't my first introduction to Jack Black, but it was one of them.
One of them.
Like one of them that I remember.
Please don't tell me your first one was Shark Tale.
No. I honestly don't remember what my first introduction to him was, but I remember, especially after rewatching this, this movie was definitely the road that brought me to Tenacious D, because I remember seeing this and I'm like, man, he's a really I remember noticing that he wasn't just acting, like he was actually rocking out, and then finding out that he had an actual rock band, and I was like, oh, that's cool. He must have done it after, and then just totally realizing and discovering Tenacious D as a whole. But
where would you rate this compared to the Tenacious D movie?
So are we number scaling this? Like, where do we rank it out of?
Just what's better, Tenacious D movie, or so the Pick of Destiny's on top or it's on bottom?
I'm gonna say Pick of Destiny's on top.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, to be a contrarian, I'm gonna say School of Rock's on top. But the reason I do actually genuinely think that is because School of Rock is more about the history of rock, whereas, I mean, there's definitely some history of rock in Tenacious D, no doubt about that. But I also feel like School of Rock aged better because there's definitely a time where like weed and shrooms and just like, the silly goofiness of it all was way more my style of comedy. Whereas now, even years later, School of Rock is still funny. Tenacious D is just like, I like the songs, but some of the like just goofiness is just a little too much. I have matured.
Yeah, fair enough. I think with Tenacious D, it's definitely more of a personal bias for me because it definitely is. It's going into the cult status. I mean, it is one of those movies. It
will never beat Trump, but cult's still the same.
But it's definitely one of those like great. It definitely goes in the selection of movies to watch inebriated, like 100%. And it's a good time. I remember being this was a couple years ago, getting like extremely, I'm just gonna say inebriated, and watching the Sasquatch scene for the first time, and being like, I was like, okay, this is what But anyway, but I agree with you. It does age better, and especially in terms of the humor. But Um,
So back to School of Rock, yeah.
yeah, Jack Black.
For me, I think the first time I think I did see it when it first came out. I don't think I went to the movie theater for it. I was
Yeah, I remember
too young
having the
for that.
DVD. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the first time I watched
You're
it,
too young at 14 to go to the movie theater?
what?
You were too young at 14 to go to the movie
No,
theater?
I was too young to go on such a regular basis that I would have watched a
Oh,
movie
gotcha,
like
gotcha,
this. Most of the
gotcha.
time,
Okay.
I'd go for like an action movie, but I wouldn't go for just any old movie.
It's like I remember going to see Accepted when I was 12 in
Back
the theater.
to me, I definitely saw Accepted when it came out. Back to me. But yeah, I just remember really liking it, and it's just like right down my alley. It's PG-13, but it definitely feels like a family movie, a lot more of a family movie than obviously some of his more mature stuff. And so I
Hmm.
think that is also part of the reason why it ages a little bit better than pretty much any, like, year one is a fucking trash fire compared to nowadays.
Oh
Just
my God. I wanted to rewatch that the other day and I didn't. And I'm like, I'm
we're getting too off on Jack Black tangents.
I
Okay,
know, I know.
I started it.
He,
I will fully admit that.
the one of the things I do want to say at the top of this, which we're more like kind of in the quarter of it at this point, but what have you. After rewatching this, I feel like it is not an exaggeration to say that Jack Black is this generation's Robin Williams.
Yeah, okay. I could see why you would
Because
say that.
watching this, like, it was cool to see where Jack Black is now, like with all that he's done now, especially with how popular Tenacious D has gotten over the years, and
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to like Jumanji, and he's done a lot bigger movies, and he's now this like viral sensation on YouTube and TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and so seeing something like this, I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, Jack Black literally in majority of his movies is just Jack Black, and that's all he needs to be. He doesn't need to be any other character.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you think Gulliver's Travels or going on other tangents of other movies that he's done, it's always the same, but it's always enjoyable and always makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I forgot how much of a feel good movie this was,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it had been so long. That was it.
Okay. So, School of Rock. And yeah, rewatching it, it's definitely still kind of up there in my top, 5 of Jack Black's of all time,
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I like his performance in it, and it's also like this underdog story, not just him as an underdog, but then the children as well as an underdog, where
Yep.
they're not necessarily like pariahs, but it's like they're in this uppity, rich person's school, and a lot of them are just kind of timid, and they're just kind of trying to get through the day, basically. Like the
Yeah.
whole demerits thing I thought was actually really funny, because it's like you see a bunch of black dots on there. Just imagine, like, you did so bad you get a black dot, and it's like, oh my
Yeah.
God. So I love that being almost like the first thing that Jack Black does. He's like, what kind of school is this? And he just
Yeah.
he just but then, yeah, like seeing them come out of their shell slowly or whatever. But not only that, I was a choir boy in high school. So I did choir, I did men's choir, I did mixed choir and jazz choir. And so, like, music was a big part of me. And from high school till now, music has always been a big part of me. Like, I could be in a bad mood, and music can get me to an okay place.
Yeah.
I'm not okay, but I'm way less sad. Way less. Did you get it? Way less sad. I may be wrong, and then it's stupid, but I have. You listen to the words of that. It may be
Yeah.
wrong, but that's all I have. And I'm like, oh, that's too real. Anyways, so music is a huge part of my life. My emotions can be extremely just tied to music or whatever. And so I can connect with these kids in, a very like personal manner. And so to see their journey from like these kids, and then just letting themselves be themselves. You know what I mean? Letting themselves be crazy. Like the one Asian kid, he's like, "I'm not cool. I can't be in a band." And then at the end, he's just like rocking out, and he's just having a good time.
Yeah.
And you see that joy in his face, and just in the way he presents himself at the end of the movie. And it's just like, yeah, wholesome is a really good word that I stole from you, because it's really good. It's just, yeah. I mean, such a good movie.
I'm waiting. Okay, there you go. The one thing that I thought was most interesting rewatching this, because I mean, of course, we rewatched this, in lead up to this. Um, oh, Inside Baseball. I don't know if that's Inside Baseball. I'm just fucking saying
Yes,
obvious shit at this
we
point. Anyway,
rewatch and replay everything that we talk about.
yes. Uh, but rewatching this where I'm at now in life, and especially being in a more parental role, like when we started talking about the high school, the like fancy school, as a parent, can you imagine spending $15,000 a year for your kid to go to school, elementary school?
Dear Watson. Yeah.
So like there's a lot of little things that I picked up on, and what I thought was interesting was because I pretty much had it on while I was at work, and so when I first had it on and was watching the first half of the movie, I don't know if it's just because of like that sort of aged paranoia or life lesson kind of stuff that I've gone through, but when he first gets in there and he's talking to him, I'm like, this is 100% illegal, and he's basically using child labor at this point. Like I kind of made me uncomfortable. I'm like, this is, but like, hold on a second.
Did you pee a little bit?
No, at that time.
Just sounded like you spit, like.
Anyway, yeah, I was uncomfortable like at first, and especially like I was cringing so much because I was doing laundry at this point. I was taking a break from work. I was doing laundry while I was watching it, and the part whenever he's trying to explain, like after the cops come in, like during the teacher conference, and he was like, "Look, your kids have touched me, and I want to say that I want to feel like I've touched them too." I'm like, oh no, like you don't say that. But like
ever.
Pretty much when I think when he starts to do the rock history, and that kind of goes to what you're talking about at the top of how much this does for rock history, it really starts to switch, and I'm like, oh, this feels genuine. It made me feel less uncomfortable, obviously, but going into it, like and I don't know if it's just because growing up with these songs and growing up with these scenes of these kids singing, or if it's just their tonal quality, but like every time there was singing or every time there was some performance, going on, like I felt that feeling, like I would get goosebumps. I'm like, especially the finale, like the final, like Battle of the Bands, like I'm getting chill bumps thinking about it. Like it's just one of those really powerful scenes, and you get to see the parents, kind of react, but again, going back to something you had said, it is definitely an underdog story. It is one of those that I feel like at the end of the day, yeah, he taught them a valuable life lesson. He taught them life experience, and he taught them, in a couple different ways and not so great ways, but also like basically how to be like, to let yourself go instead of being what society wants you to be. And, it's a lot of these movies in the early 2000s, we got these kind of messaging, and they really age well, going back to kind of what we were saying before. Like that message still stands, and it still stands for something.
I mean, I think that is what makes the movie work so much, is that he is kind of scum, and he's kind of like, he is a piece of shit for using kids or whatever. But I do, like you said, I do love the fact that that's kind of just how it starts or whatever. It's almost that like romantic comedy cliche where it's like they started dating this person because they were dared to or whatever, but then they really fell in love, so it's almost like that, but obviously it's more platonic, obviously.
Right.
But still, it's like, yeah, he's like, he needed them just as much as they needed him. And I mean, that kind of dichotomy between all the characters or whatever, it's what makes this, I think, timeless. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter that this took place during the 2000s or the 80s or even the 2020s. Like, it's pretty timeless because that is a universal message. It's a message that can transcend just, time, space, and even like race.
Yeah. And like watching this, I feel like this is one of those seminal movies that you can watch at multiple points in your life and get something different out of it.
Definitely.
And yeah. I was just thinking about the one scene whenever Zach comes up to Ned. Yeah, Ned. I was trying to remember. I was like, no, Dewey. Yeah,
Dewey.
Check. Yeah, when he goes up to Dewey in that scene, he's like, "Hey, it was a really awesome lesson today." And then like Zach walks away, and you kind of see that look on his face. Like,
yeah,
I've gone through that recently. Like anytime, like my partner's kid will like the other day, something that like the first time I introduced him to Spider-Man. Like the Spider-Man 90s cartoon. I was like, I think you'll like this. And he ended up binging the entire thing before I did. I was like,
nice.
I was like, it's kind of one of those, okay, I did something positive that like I positively, like getting to see that positive, I could relate to that. Whereas back when I first watched it, I was, in the seat of the kids. And like, I was like, man, that's awesome. Like, that's a great, like, message for me to learn. So it is one of those that I feel like you should watch like once a quarter. I don't know. I mean, it's
definitely something to rewatch. If you watched it like when you were younger and watch it now, yeah, I have kind of a similar thing where it's like, Zoe Ann is getting to the point where she can play more games. So like for the first time ever, I got Madeline to bed and my wife to bed. And then me and Zoe Ann stayed up to play video games because it's summer and we don't have to get her to bed. So it's like, like that feeling of like, oh, like instilling something on her and being able to kind of reap the benefits, so to speak, but also just like I get something out of it just as much as she does. And yeah. So, what did you guys think about School of Rock? Rewatch it if you can. It's a little difficult because it's not on any streaming. We had to basically
you would think it's on
it.
Paramount Plus. Like
something.
It's so strange.
I mean,
but the TV show is.
Right. I know. That's what's so stupid about it. But anyways, but yeah, try to rewatch it. We had to rent it from Amazon Prime, but rewatch it and really try to, see how it makes you feel different as a full-grown adult versus maybe when you first saw it. But yeah, let us know down in the comments below. I was Nick.
And I was Nate. And remember, kids, rock got no reason, rock got no rhyme.
Because you can rock it all the time.
You better get me to school on time.